Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2500. Wow. This morning, we're talking to a young man who's figured out a way to get you out on the track in a very fast Porsche. Sounds like a lot of fun. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm close to home in Tacoma, Washington, actually out in Kent, which is not too far from where I live here in Gig Harbor, with a very special, I'll say a friend, because I've known this gentleman since he was a little kid. His name is Collin Hungate. Collin, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Good morning, Mark. Thanks for having me, and I am more than ready to release that clutch.
No kidding. You're a guy that's good at doing that. And we'll dive into the details here, listeners, in a moment. But before we begin, I ask everybody this question to kind of break the ice. What's one little thing that people don't know about you, Collin?
Mark, there couldn't be a more fitting analogy for this morning because I just started learning how to drive manual.
Wait, okay. Back
Take
up.
that in.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Wait a minute. Now, you know, as my son, Blake, you went to school with, my daughter, Paige, was a little bit older than you and your brother, but both of my kids had to learn how to drive cars on stick shift cars. And they learned to drive in our 1972 911S Porsche. And I did that for a reason, because I wanted them to always be able to say that for their whole life. Now, at the time, they were like, "Why are you doing this to me, Dad?" And I required that their first cars be manuals. And you may remember Blake drove a red BMW when he was going to school with you and your brother. And I think he was one of the only kids in school that had a manual car.
Sounds about right.
He used to say that. He goes, "Dad, nobody will steal my car because they can't figure out how to drive it." Not that many cars were stolen from where you guys got to go to school. But okay, I've got to ask, what's going on here? Because I know your late father was a Porsche guy, wonderful man. Your brother loves cars too, but what do you mean you're just learning to drive a manual?
Yeah, so it's a long story, and I got to start with the background.
Okay.
When I learned how to drive back in 2011, we had automatic cars in our garage at home. We did have one manual car, and I wasn't allowed to drive it. It was a 2010 Porsche GT3 RS. It was the 997.2 gen. And I asked my dad many times over the years, "Hey, can I take it here? Can I take it to prom?" Nope. And then after that, he had other Porsches. But as you know, in 2014, the 991 GT3, only an automatic. So once he had that car, he only had automatics after that.
Okay.
Yep. And the reason why I have to drive manual is because I got an allocation for the Porsche ST.
Ooh,
very lucky. Grateful
nice.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the listeners, it's essentially a GT3 RS Touring. It's a GT3 RS with a manual transmission and less aggressive aerodynamic parts. And it looks pretty sleek. It's going to be a special car. Yeah.
Lucky young man you are. Well, this is very, very cool. And we're going to dive into what these Porsches mean to you and where we are today. But first, let me give you a proper introduction. Collin Hungate started Sport Driving Motors in 2023, so this is a new company for him. He rents Porsches for drivers to use as HPDE events and for recreational lapping programs. Collin, his father, his brother have enjoyed driving at racetracks for many, many years, all kinds of different cars, as you heard. All started with his dad putting a Porsche in the garage. Porsche models including the base 911 to GT3s and everything in between. Today, Collin has a fleet of 5 Porsches to rent at his home track, Pacific Raceways, my home track too. That's where I first learned how to drive and race in the Pacific Northwest. Great track too, by the way. He has set his sights on expanding to other tracks starting next year. Very cool. He grew up in the Tacoma, Washington area. Like I said, he went to school with my kids, and volunteering in the community and supporting local businesses are very important, and he plans to stay here and focus on his family, faith, and growing his business. We'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors, so give them a little love. So keep the seatbelts tight. We're at a track today. We're going to have some fun. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take charge of your financial future? Then let me introduce you to Capitalize Your Finances. It's an online course designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools for mastering your money. This course will help you lay out the ins and outs of budgeting, the importance of emergency funds, investing strategies, and how to plan for a secure retirement. All this presented by financial planner Chris Paniotu. Chris has developed this course to help you effectively navigate your world of finance with confidence. Stop stressing about money and start taking control. Enroll in Capitalize Your Finance online course today and pave your way to financial success. To learn more, go to capitalizepodcast.com/courses, or better yet, go to the Cars Yeah website, show notes page for today's show, and click on the link under Capitalize Your Finances. You'll be glad you did. Do it today. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and firsthand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. All right, Collin, we are back. So let's start with sport driving motors. Now, you're a young man. You've got a little 1-year-old, I believe, little girl, who's actually got the same name as my granddaughter, who's about to turn 1 coming up here in about a month and a half, which is pretty cool. And you are a local boy, but you decided to do something kind of bold and crazy and wild and start this business. So what made you or pushed you into this direction to do something like this? Because this is a very unique kind of business.
It is very unique, Mark. And I'll have to say the first inclination that I had that maybe there's a chance that I can get into the automotive industry and do something that I'm passionate about was coming to and from Pacific Raceways. As someone who's enjoyed recreational lapping over the years, like you said, it's a family affair. My brother and father have also done that, and we've done many lapping sessions. As I was coming in to do lapping days, seeing the industrial buildings being built prompted me to think 2 things. Number one, the track is doing something to improve itself. The fact that buildings are going up, they're trying to attract current businesses, inspire new ones to be created like mine. And also it gave me some hope that a lot of the things that people have to say negatively about this track, which most of the time I don't agree with, but like things like safety, bringing the track new amenities. I started to dig deeper into what it was all about, and that's exactly what it's about.
Well, Pacific Raceways is a track, I'm trying to recall, because I had the owner, Jason Fiorito, on this show back in 2019. And I've known Jason and the family going way back to when I moved here 30 years ago. Now, that track, do you know the year that track was started? Is it in the 60s?
Oh, I think it's, at least that far back.
When you think about people like Pete Lovely, who used to go race there, and of course he was an F1 driver, a local guy, and all the people that have raced there over the years, that's where I first raced a vintage car. But I want you to talk a little bit about, before we get maybe into your business, what they're doing out there, because it's a very different place from when I raced there.
One of the coolest things that I heard from Jason recently was that it was his grandfather who just went around this property with a tractor and did what he felt was the best layout for a track. And
wow.
You're right, Mark. It was 1960 when this track was introduced to our region. And
when you think about the history there too, some amazing names raced at that track back in the 60s.
Yes.
I mean, all the greats, Dan Gurney raced there. I mean, so many people that ran cars there, and it really started as a sports car driving place. It's not a big F1 track or anything like that, but nowadays, and on July 4th, of course, we have our historic races, which at the time of this recording are about to come up this coming weekend, but they've already taken place when this went live. But it's a really fun track, but they built this new facility there, which is where your business is housed, right?
Yes, yeah. And the track also has, even before these buildings were up, they had a mindset that they wanted to make it safer. And so two of the ways they did that were, number one, adding Armco barriers around the backside of the track, and then also making some of the tight corners like 3A, 3B, and 5A, where in racing, those are like very tight, contested areas.
Yeah.
They made those parts of the track wider so that there's more room to operate. And Jason and the family have created these industrial buildings to attract businesses, existing ones, and new businesses, new ideas. And honestly, Mark, I can't even tell you whose idea it was to do track rentals with Porsches. My initial thought when I saw the buildings was, what a great place to have a man cave. I love coming here. I love driving here more than the other tracks around the area. Although we have a lot of great ones. We're lucky here in the Northwest. And from there, I was like, maybe I could sell cars. There's not like a dealership here, and maybe I could be like a boutique car broker. Mm-hmm. And I still don't know whose idea it was to do Porsche track rentals, but I went with it. And one thing led to another. It started with this idea that, maybe I have a good, better, best option. But I kind of scratched that idea. And after talking to my biggest partner, which is the Performance Racing School operated by Don Kitch and his wife, Donna, what it seemed like to me that they needed was something that would complement the school and add value. So Performance already has these Toyotas as rentals, which are great cars, by the way. If you're just learning how to drive, I 100% recommend that you start in one of their Toyota GR86s, because you need to learn how to drive a slow car fast. And what you'll find out is your driving ability gets better with taking more classes, and especially doing the race licensing, is that those cars actually are pretty fast. It's about the driver. But what the school is excited about is now they have a whole new category of rentals. So I scratched the good, better, best, because they already have good and better. And so now I offer a category that's well above theirs, number one, because I don't want to compete with what they have to offer, which is, a good rental option. Mm-hmm. Number two, it seems that I'm now attracting like a new type of driver, and also adding value to what Performance can advertise as what's available for group events, which is a fleet of five Porsches.
It's a great idea because I'm very familiar. Don's been a guest on the show. I've known Don since I moved here 30 years ago, and then got involved with driving. My first experience when I wanted to go racing was to join the BMW. Well, I was part of the BMW Club and Porsche Club, and come out and do their driving days. And in my Porsche, my BMW, and see if I am comfortable going fast. Because everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to have fun going fast. But when you really get on a track and start driving a car hard, sometimes it's intimidating. It's like when I got my motorcycle license, the class started with, I don't know, maybe 15 people in it. And after the second weekend, there were 12, because people realized, this motorcycle thing maybe is not for me, which is the best thing you can do. But you're right, starting in a slower car and then working your way up. A lot of people nowadays, think about young people, even older people that have bought their dream car, and they take it to the track and they think they're going to be instant heroes, and they find out, hopefully very quick before something bad happens, that this driving is a skill, right? It takes time and practice. And I wanted to talk a little bit about sport driving motors, because there are places all over the country where you can go rent supercars, hypercars, Ferraris, and Porsches and other things. But my experience and observation with many of those is you go out, you spend a pretty big amount of money, and you drive around kind of like parade laps, 3-5 laps, and you come in and you go, that's it? You're offering more than that, right?
Correct. Yeah. And I'll go back to mentioning the Performance Racing School, because although I have really fun, fast cars for people to drive, my partner Performance has the instructors and a whole program that's geared towards taking whatever you've learned on the street in terms of driving and high performance driving, and really apply what skills you have and what skills are missing to make you a good lapper. And they do it the right way. So what I cater towards when individuals want to drive with me is I try to send them in the direction of learn everything you can with an instructor in the right seat in one of my cars. And those who have done it, not only I think do they have more fun, but they end whatever performance program they're in as a better driver, then you can also, through the Performance Racing School, get a solo credential that I've taken across the country. And I'm able to drive Circuit of the Americas on a Chin track day because Performance's solo credential is recognized by the biggest traveling track organizers.
Oh, that is invaluable. And the folks out at Performance, Don and his team and what he's put together, he's been there so long that you can feel really confident. They know that track so well. And I've been out there in a lot of different events, not only vintage racing, but like I said, club events. I've even been invited by I got to go out once and drive brand new Bentleys. Now, that was quite interesting because Bentley, I don't know why they had me on their list. It's probably not a car I'm going to buy. But in fact, I almost didn't go. But I thought, I'll go give it a try. And Performance had their folks there who sat in the right seat. They actually put 2 people in the back seat. They teamed us up with 3 people and which it's a Bentley, right? I tell you, I was so impressed by that car. I couldn't believe what it can do. But the reason I share the story is there was one guy with us that had a Bentley and he thought he knew how to drive it on a track. And we started going and I very quickly, I looked at the guy sitting in the back seat next to me and I went, I want to get out of this car because you could tell the guy was way in over his head. And the instructor finally made him pull over, said, you need to stop. Okay. You're going way too fast for your skill set. Let's slow it down. And the guy was kind of angry. Well, I have a car. And he goes, okay, well, you can come out and do this in your car. Better yet, no, you shouldn't. But having an instructor there, my point about sharing the story is if you think you're a hot shoe and you're not, they will show you how to slow down and then eventually get up there. If you're a good driver, they'll make you an even better driver and they'll teach you things on a very technical track like Pacific Raceway that maybe if you just went out and tried it on your own, you might, like I said, hopefully not learn the hard way because I've seen cars take bad hits out there that are just way in over their head going too fast. So I always say slow down, but I love the fact that you methodically thought through this whole process. Now, I know you shared stories about Porsche with your dad, so there was some influence there. But why Porsche? Why did you choose that as the mark of choice for this first part of your business growth?
It's a great question, Mark. And I think it all starts with when you go to the paddock of any track in the country and you look at what cars are there, you see Porsches. The reason why you see Porsches is the first reason is they're very fast. They're high performance. They're geared towards driving enthusiasts. That's how they're built. Number 2 is they're reliable and they're safe. And Porsches, in addition to going fast, they also have a lot of grip. And one of the ways I describe them is for an advanced driver, they can find more and more and more performance to unlock the longer they drive the car. But conversely, beginners can step and sit down into a Porsche and it's easy to drive. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Whereas I don't feel that way sometimes getting into a McLaren or a Ferrari, which, by the way, I love those cars, but they're not what I want to offer right now to people in my business because the Porsches are safe, they're fast, and they're easily insurable too. So that's the other component about my business is track insurance, and my carrier doesn't insure Ferraris.
Well, yeah, it's like the old Cobras, Shelby Cobras. For many years, a lot of the collector car companies would not insure them because they were what they called tree wrappers. People would get in them and wrap them around a tree because they're very rough and raw. But you're right, Porsche's that way. Talked about the variety of cars you have and maybe a little bit about how different each one is. Because a lot of people, especially someone like myself who's a Porsche fanatic, I've had lots of 911s. Everyone is the same but different. But you're at another level. I mean, you're at cars way above. The last newest Porsche I had was a 993 4S. And great car. I mean, just awesome car. But you're at another level with where Porsche has brought that 911 model. So can you walk us through each model you have to offer and why that model is chosen?
So the first cars I have in my lineup that I try to direct people towards are the base 911 Carreras. So I have the previous generation, the 991 Carrera T, and then I have the current gen Carrera and current gen Carrera T. And these cars, number one, they have plenty of performance. With 380 horsepower, you can be scooting around this track. In fact, I have had drivers who put in faster lap times with the 991 Carrera T than people do with the 991 GT3.
Why do you think that is?
Mark, I think the number one reason why people feel that the Carrera is the right car for them out here on the track is it inspires a lot of confidence. The 380 horsepower, the car applies that power so well, and I think the platform is more than enough with 380 horsepower. And the GT3, it does have a little bit of a fear factor to it. It has a respect factor. And so whenever somebody comes in and is like, I'm ready to drive the GT3, I immediately divert them to, well, what about the Carrera? Have you driven one of these Carreras before? I love the idea of people working up towards it. Of course, if someone comes in and they have experience already, I'll talk to them, and sometimes I'll talk to Don Kitch as well and be like, hey, this person's ready. And if Don agrees, then we'll go ahead and send them out. So I got the 3 Carreras. I have the GT3. I decided to also get the Cayman platform, and so I got a GT4.
Ooh.
I did a poll on Instagram, and I asked, what car should I get next? And in my mind, it was a GT4. And out of the 12 or so responses, I think 8 of them were GT4, or of course, the GT4 RS. But I went with the GT4, and this is my opinion and also the opinion of the instructors that have driven it here at Performance, is it feels like their Toyota GR86, but on steroids. The balance of the car, the size, how low it is, how low the seat position is, it really feels more like a traditional balanced sports car or even race car. Mm-hmm. And with an exhaust on that thing, it is such a rocket, and it is so fun driving the GT4.
You're tugging on my heartstrings a little bit here, because for the first time in over 40 years, I don't have a Porsche in my garage. I sold, as my listeners know, my 930. I had an 87 930, my Orange Crush, as I called her, a year and a half ago or so. Somehow I totally lucked out and hit the market at the peak of the Porsche fanaticism on collector cars. And I've thought seriously about what's going to be the next one. And I've always loved the look of the Cayman since it came out. The 4.0, the GTS, is the car I've kind of looked at. I've talked to people that have the GT4, maybe a little bit much for street driving. My track days are kind of behind me, but I don't know. Now I know I have a friend out there at the track. I might have to come and visit you, Collin. Yeah, I love that car. And I love, it's nice to hear that from you, that as a car, the balance, of course, that mid-engine kind of does everything right. And I like the size too. I like smaller cars, and 911s have gotten kind of big. When you even park my 930 with those big hips next to a newer Porsche, it looked like a little toy, right?
I would agree with that. And Mark, I got to say, the Cayman GTS, the 4.0, I think that only comes with a manual, right?
You can get that with PDK, but of course, now they're talking about it going electric, so you got to get one now if you want a new one. But they've stopped offering paint to sample on those cars, which is kind of a bummer. So I wanted to go with something kind of wild, but I don't know. We'll see. There's lots of great used cars out there too.
I actually myself looked into the Cayman GTS 4.0, and yes, of course, when I build it on the configurator, I immediately go to paint to sample, probably just like everyone else. My daily is the new 992 Carrera T. Ooh. And again, I think 380 horsepower on the road is more than enough. I got a manual, so I forced myself to get very proficient with the feel of a Porsche clutch. Mm-hmm. And the ST that will show up probably next spring, it's known for having the lightweight flywheel and clutch. So yeah. I'm going to have to then get used to that. Oh, but Mark, I think the Cayman GTS 4.0 is an amazing street car.
Yeah.
I think you should pull the trigger.
All right. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about you because as I said at the beginning, I've known you since you were a little kid. I went to school with my children, and you and your brother, I knew your dad, and, sadly we lost him a while back, way, way too soon. But definitely his passion for cars and his love for Porsche trickled down. Would you say that he was your mentor, your inspirational person? I mean, he had to be one of them, at least, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll highlight my dad because none of this Porsche stuff or driving on the track I can't imagine it would have been on the forefront of my mind to engage in this type of sport without my dad. And not only are Porsches a family passion of ours, but my dad, as you know, he had a successful business that he started from the ground up. And that entrepreneurial spirit, I believe, lives on in me today. And I've always had this creative mind. One way it's been described is I have a large gravitation towards wonder. And could I do this? Could I make this better? Could I do something that hasn't been done before? Could I do something that's out of my comfort zone? What would it look like? So I have this attribute to me of wonder. And my dad also had that. And not only did he have it, but he inspired me and my brothers to wonder. And one of the success quotes that he had on a little metal plaque on his desk was, "What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?" If that's your mentality, you start doing things regardless of whatever fear or adversity you have to overcome. And generally, you can figure it out.
Yeah, that sounds like your dad, Peter. I love that. That's a great saying. Let's do a shout out for the business that he built, and your brother's running that business now, right? What's
Yes.
the name of that business?
It's Pacific Heating and Cooling. And when my dad was just getting started with it, it was Pacific Air Systems. He bought the name and a customer list for a very small loan. It was a tiny company at the time. And he grew that business from less than 10 employees to over 100.
Oh, yeah.
And it was very unfortunate and sudden and kind of out of the blue when he passed away to a tragic accident. My brother and I immediately felt the need that we needed to step in. And although I had been working 2 years there at the time, my brother was 1 week on the job when it happened.
Wow.
And we both felt a very strong need to make sure that that business would carry on. And honestly, the decision was easy to do this because A, it was our father's business, but B, we had such a strong team there already that all we had to do was empower the leaders and managers that my dad hired and the key employees. And it was a great decision. As you could imagine, Mark, there were people who told us or asked, "Are you going to sell it?" And my brother and I just felt that's not what our dad would have wanted.
Yeah, I'll tell the listeners, if you're local to Pacific Northwest, Pacific Heating and Cooling, we've been clients of your family business since way, way back, probably since we first moved here. When we met you guys through you guys were in the same school as my kids. And we've had you guys put in heating system, cooling systems. We're going to have a hot week this week, so we're going to be smiling at the Hungate family. And I'll tell you, here's the secret, I think, to your father's business that no doubt you and your brother have carried that ball and carried through is great people. Everyone who's come to our house is excellent. And I tell you, I think everyone listening out there, you had service people come to your house to fix things, and it's rarely a stellar experience. A person might be able to do it, but they're just not quite spot on. But the caliber of people there is what has made this work so great. So I'm glad I'm able to put a plug in for you guys. I want to talk about a challenge that you've faced. Now, obviously, losing your father at a young age and having to step into some big shoes is a big challenge. But let's gear it towards this business that you're building. Since this is cars, I wanted to find out from you what has been to date of building this new brand for yourself and track experiences. What's the biggest challenge been? And how has it taught you to be able to carry it forward?
I think the biggest challenge, and there's two here, Mark, I'll describe both, but I think the biggest challenge is the fact that I'm going into this alone. And the business lives and dies based off of what I put into it right now. And although I have some tremendous help now, both in other businesses, other partners, and I also have an incredible overqualified employee who's absolutely knocking it out of the park for me. Just the idea that I got to figure this out. I got to find a way to get insured. I got to find a way to get the financing and get the cars. And I got to find a way to bring in new clients. When sometimes it doesn't happen or I stall, I start to get this fear and this doubt that creeps in. And in that process, I think everyone would agree, starting a business is you start to find yourself and you start to think harder about why you're doing this. And it takes, I think, those moments in order to help you move forward again. But without a doubt, having that pressure of the business will live and die based off of what I put forth in terms of effort and concentration. It's a lot of pressure.
I tell you, you need to, maybe you've done this, make a duplicate of that plaque that was set on your father's desk and put it on yours. I think that would be a great idea. You mentioned two things there too, that you learned from your dad is surround yourself with great people. Sounds like, so is this your first employee that you've had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you picked a great one, overqualified and able to help you. That's a great thing that you're doing. The other one you mentioned was the word why, which I talk about a lot on the show, is determining your why. If you go back to like Simon Sinek, which is an online guide, and you learn about yeah, I see the okay sign here, the thumbs up, double thumbs up, is learning your why. And that's really important as you go into a new business to learn why you're doing this. And that will help define. The other part of it is just defining, you talk about expanding your business, is defining very clearly your avatar. That is your customer. And writing it down. I did that when I started this podcast. I have a 2-page write-up on who my key listener is. And I think it stays kind of the same. So I would advise doing those things for yourself as you expand into this business and grow it. And definitely is a scalable type thing across the country. It's great, but surround yourself with great people. That's the success to everybody. And then let them do their job. That's the other big part of it. I wanted to talk about also a special vehicle in your life. Now, you got a few special vehicles, but maybe there's that first car, or maybe there's the one car in your stable right now that qualifies as your special vehicle.
My special vehicle, Mark, is a 2016 GT3 RS, and I'll never forget the first time I saw one in person. It was purple.
Purple? Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, Porsche's up to something different. I don't see a lot of purple Porsches on the road, and it had these beautiful yellow contrasting accents on it, including the brake calipers. And I saw it on the freeway driving next to me, and of course I stayed by it as long as I could.
Yeah. And
when I started to be in a position to get a car like that, I had my eye on specifically the 2016 GT3 RS, an ultraviolet purple. And when one came for sale in Bellevue that I saw on Auto Trader, it was special to me because the previous owner made a decision to remove the 991 decals and rather put on the 997.2 GT3 RS decals, which is the GT3 RS my dad had. And when I saw that, I immediately started thinking about it all the time. And at the time, I had a 2018 GT3. So from a certain point of view, I had a little bit of concern that maybe going back, a couple of years, it's like I already have this great GT3 that I've really enjoyed. I went and test drove it, and I felt way more connected to the car, and it was a little bit more raw and stiff and a little bit more analog. The note of every GT3 over the years is slightly different. You can recognize it across all the years, but this particular one has a slightly lower toned growl to it, and I absolutely love it.
That's what I say about 911s, as I've had a lot of them. Everyone is the same but different. And going from the newest one I had, which was that 993, which was just, I got to pick a new one up in, it was 1996. It was 96, went and picked up a new one at the factory and drove it around Europe for 2 weeks. And that Varioram engine, when it hits that certain point around 3,500 RPM, I just went, this thing is just so sweet. And that was my daily driver. The Ida 98 was my daily driver for a long time. It was just really, really fun. But yeah, the GT3s, I got to pick up a GT2 down in Sacramento and drive it back here for a friend. And that was pretty exhilarating. It was a brand new car, and I was on the street, so I couldn't really get too crazy. But that was an interesting car to drive back on the road for sure. I want to talk about crawling into your head and being a little bit of a car psychologist here for you today. If you were reincarnated or manifested a vehicle, what would you be? But more importantly, why?
I would be a GT3 Touring.
Okay.
The reason why I'd be the Touring is the GT3 Touring takes what's already great about the regular GT3 we know, and it removes the rear wing It removes a couple things about it on the exterior to make it look more like your regular 911, but under the hood is
A monster.
still that 4.0 liter flat six that revs to 9,000. And why would I be specifically a GT3 Touring? Well, I think my motor in me definitely can rev to 9,000 RPMs. And when I'm not doing that and I'm just stuck in 7th gear on the freeway, I have this need and this want to downshift and get back into
Higher revs.
that higher rev range.
Yeah.
That's how I operate.
Yeah, I hear you. I love it. I love it. I mentioned in the beginning, you're a guy that likes to give back. I have a feeling this is probably something that your father taught you, because knowing Peter as I did, he was really about community and helping others. What are some ways that you like to give back?
Yeah, first off, the method matters to me. And one thing that was really cool about my dad is he would give and not tell anybody. And sometimes I do like to let people know, hey, I gave to this organization. I'd like you to know about it. And I think you should give. And I'm proud of the fact that I gave. But one thing I realized about my dad was he gave in secret, which I think is really cool. And it wasn't about sort of the notoriety for him, but rather he felt that satisfaction of giving in his heart. And that's what mattered most. So when employees approached him about, this softball team or that, it wasn't important that the logo was on their hats and their equipment. It was more important that he cared about this employee. He was grateful for their service and work at the company, and so he gave. He also gave to some organizations and didn't really know about it until after he passed away. He gave to the South Puget Sound branches of the Boys and Girls Club, which I don't know if he would have gave unless my brother and I volunteered. So we volunteered there at Charles Wright, and just come to find out he was a giver there.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to that saying of doing nice things when no one's looking.
Yeah.
Is not worrying about what it means. And you see that a lot, especially social media, a little bit of self-patting. I did this, I did that. And I don't like to talk about myself, and so I think there's a lot to that. And it's something that I've learned doing this show is that we are our best when we are giving to others.
Yes.
That's the when I get asked, what's the one thing you've learned about talking to over 2,500 people? I said, that's it. We are our best when we give to others. And even better, the way Peter did it, the way you're doing it, and your brother, no doubt, probably, and the rest of the team there. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. We like books here. Is there a great book that you could recommend to us?
One of the books a few years ago that I have no doubt inspired me and created some foundation to be an entrepreneur was Shoe Dog. It was, by Phil Knight. And just hearing the humble beginnings of a University of Oregon track runner and his coach just deciding that, hey, I think we could do a better job making a track shoe, and to hear the shortcomings and to hear it had a different name back in the day. Cash flow issues, fear, doubt, pushing forward, going with your gut, failing, getting up and trying again. And still overcoming adversity, even after it seemed like, Nike was a success, they still had adversity to overcome. And Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman totally poured their hearts out and their time and attention into that endeavor. And boy, did it pay off. And it's a great book.
It really is. And a lot of people, when they hear brands like Nike or Apple or Ralph Lauren Polo, they just go, oh, these guys were a success from the beginning. I mean, Ralph Lauren was selling ties to Macy's department store from the trunk of his car in New York and, trying to build a brand. Of course, now you look at it and you go, oh, that looks so easy. But no. Not easy at all. And these gentlemen that build these empires, Steve Jobs with Apple, Elon Musk, whether you like him or not, you have to sit back in awe and go, oh my gosh, how does this guy do what he does? I think he has 5 companies now, maybe 6. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, pretty incredible, pretty incredible. So let's go on the ultimate drive, which is a fun question, but for you, it's going to be rather unique because you already do fun drives. I mean, that's your business. So here's how we play the game. I'm going to park any car. Don't worry about the price because I'm writing the check today in your hangar there, just enjoying the track or to take on a drive anywhere in the world. So if you want to go somewhere unique and special, what would the car be and where would you be going? But here's the key. Who would you be going with?
I love this question, Mark. Without a doubt, it would be the 2010 997.2 GT3 RS. And now that I can drive manual, I am excited that if I get the opportunity someday to drive that car, which in your world right now, I'm driving it, and I'm driving it with my dad. And what I'd love to do is go on one of the beautiful windy, twisty roads towards Eastern Washington with my dad driving. And then once he's finished and gotten enough, we take it back to Pacific Raceways and I show him how to drive it properly.
There you go. He's smiling at that comment. I love it. That's very cool. Well, we've had fun today. And, you know, it's really fun when I have people on my show that are young people that I knew when they were kids and now they're making it as a success on their own. And there's been a lot of them on this show. And by the way, my son who's traveling right now with his wife says hello to you. And he'll be back. We've been babysitting Blue, his dog. So that's been a good experience for us to have a puppy in the house. He's a little crazy, but he's a good dog, so we'll survive. Could you leave us with some parting words of success or advice from someone who's out there doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing people don't know about me, Mark, is I coach football here locally, middle school and high school, but my beginning there was at the University of Oregon, and one of the coaches that I had the pleasure, I was an intern on the Oregon football team, but one of the coaches that I had a pleasure of working with, there was a quote that meant a lot to him, and it was in our indoor practice facility. And what it read was, do what others aren't willing to do today so you can do what they can't do tomorrow. And doing a little spin on that and trying to inspire myself as an entrepreneur getting this business venture going is I want to do today what I wasn't willing to do tomorrow so I can do today what I couldn't do yesterday, and trying to push myself towards doing things that I don't have time for, I didn't feel like doing, and saying, no, I'm going to do it.
It's a good attitude to have, and no doubt you're off on a great start. Sport Driving Motors. You can find it at sportdrivingmotors.com. There are other ways people can follow you?
Yes, people can follow me on Instagram at Sport Driving Motors. And I also have a website, www.sportdrivingmotors.com. And a great place if you need to have a conversation about what's the right car for you is simply 253-553-7607. And you can call or text that line, and I'd be happy to discuss what's the best track day and car for you.
Sounds like fun to me, listeners. So check it out if you're here in the Pacific Northwest, or keep your eyes open in the years to come. I have a feeling that Collin's going to be out there at some other great tracks across the country. So sounds good to me. Collin, this has been really great to catch up with you, my friend. I'm sitting here chatting with you thinking, God, remember when this kid was just a little kid? Look what he's doing now. So my hat's off to you. My love and hugs to the family. Next time we talk, I'll see you down the road, or hopefully at a track in a Porsche.
Thanks for having me, Mark, and you're welcome here anytime. And I think you need to come here and get a little of that Porsche driving spirit
I think
renewed.
So. Yep, absolutely. Sounds like a good thing to do, my friend. I'm honored to say that my charity of choice here at Cars Yeah is Tech Force Foundation. They help young people find an education and career that aligns with their passions. For those who love cars, problem solving, and working with their hands, a career as a professional automotive technician is the perfect fit for a fulfilling life. We're all wired differently, and not every successful career demands a 4-year university. Technical education and the skilled trades matter, and we need qualified, skilled technicians to keep our vehicles rolling. Learn more about how you can support tomorrow's driving force and workforce of technicians at techforce.org, like I do here at Cars Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah!